So guys, it's me, Grey Wolf, back here to do another video for you. Today's video is actually really interesting for me, mostly because I went looking for it and I could not find another one on YouTube about this. So I won't say I'm the first guy to do it, but I'm definitely probably up there. I haven't seen anybody else do it, so anyway, today we're going to be talking about an alternate way to waterproof your electronics. Now, waterproofing has always been a huge topic when it comes to RCs, and quite frankly, I've always been a little dissatisfied with the two main ways that most people accept as the two most common ways to waterproof stuff. The first probably being the Plasti-Dip method, or at least that was the first one I was ever introduced to. Plasti-Dip slash liquid tape. And the second one being Corrosion X. Now, as you guys know, I have a video where I tried Corrosion X HD or Corrosion X Heavy Duty, just to see if there was any difference in it, if it was any harder to work with. Mostly because nobody else had nobody that I could find had tried the HD version, and I figured the HD version would probably hold up better. You know, if it was as workable as the original, it would probably hold up better since it was thicker and stuff. But anyway, you can watch my Corrosion X video if you want the rundown on what I thought about that stuff. But so, at any rate, the two main problems, each one of those methods has their own its own main problem. The rubberized waterproofing version has the drawback of making the electronic component, usually like your ESC is a prime example of this. It makes it retain heat a little more than it would on average. Of course, if it's in the water, it may or may not matter, but I don't like the fact that if you're not running it in water, and say it's hot outside or whatever, it will retain that heat a little more. The Corrosion X method doesn't trap heat nearly as much because it's not encased in rubber, but Corrosion X is really messy to work with. It's gunky. It's just nasty. When you go to open up the electronics again, you got all that gunk inside there, and it's just not very clean to work with. Well, it just so happens that I've stumbled across an alternate way, a third way of waterproofing electronics, and I stumbled across it on Facebook. A real-life friend of mine, Fredo is his name, tagged me on a video that was out on Facebook for this product, and the product is called NeverWet, and it comes in a box like this. It's called NeverWet, and they call it, they refer to it as I'm trying to see if it's on the box here because I don't want to misquote them, but I don't see it on here. I believe they called it a super hydro... What's the word I'm looking for? A super hydrophobic compound. And they show, in that video that I watched, they show a bunch of different applications that it can be used for. Now, half the applications that they showed was kind of like, you really wouldn't want to use it on that stuff. The main drawback to this, assuming that it works, now I haven't tested it, I'm going to test it on video for you guys. So assuming that this works and it keeps our electronics safe, the main drawback to this stuff is that it dries with a clearish milky white haze, which for our electronics we don't really care about. It's kind of a powdery looking stuff. If you spray it on real thick, which I did, they tell you to put a generous coat on. I went crazy with the stuff because I wanted to make sure it got a good coat, and I wanted to make sure it got in everywhere. So the internals of my electronic speed controller turned out particularly to have a milky white coating on it, but that's fine. We don't. I mean, I personally don't care what the ESC board looks like, as long as it's waterproof and as long as it works. So if it does work, A, it's not going to retain heat like the rubberized stuff will, and B, it doesn't. You're not going to have to deal with that gunky mess. Now, like Corrosion X, this stuff does say that it does need to be reapplied once in a while. It mostly just has to do with how often it's exposed to water, but it doesn't really say in terms of electronics. It doesn't really give any kind of guide as to when it needs to be reapplied. It just says to reapply when water stops beating on whatever surface it was that you applied it on. So that would lead me to believe that you might need to reapply the stuff once in a while, but I don't know. That's going to be one of those things that's going to be a judgment call on your part if you decide to use it. And honestly, though, I don't think it'll have to be reapplied all that often if it works as well as some of the demonstrations they gave in the video. But the thing that gave me the idea to try it for this application was one of the things that they demoed it on was an iPhone 5. They took an iPhone 5 apart, they coated the inside of it, they took a Q-tip and coated all of the basically the ports and the holes. One of these days I'm going to remember to turn my cell phone off when I'm making these videos. At any rate, they covered all of the ports and the holes and all of that stuff with it, and they submerged it in a like a Tupperware container of water, and it worked just fine. They left it in there for a minute or so, and they pulled it back out. Still worked just fine. So I figured, hey, if it works on an iPhone 5, it should work on my speed controller, right? Well, we're going to find out. Just so you guys know how it works, that inside that box comes these two cans. You got step 1 and step 2. Step 1 is a base coat, and it goes on kind of rubbery. And if you put a real heavy coat on, you'll notice it gets a little stringy in areas. I just kind of let it firm up a little bit, and then just kind of peeled the stringy areas away. The stringy areas were like in between wires where maybe they were touching when I sprayed them, and then they got pulled apart, that kind of stuff. But I don't think you'll have that problem if you don't go crazy with it. Like I said, I went pretty nuts with it. I put a pretty heavy coat on it, probably totally unnecessary, because in the video with that iPhone 5, for example, they put a very light coat. But at any rate, you put the base coat on, you let it dry for a minimum of a half hour, put the top coat on, let it dry for a minimum of half an hour. I let mine dry overnight. Well, I let my base coat dry for a half hour to an hour or so. Then I'll let the top coat dry overnight. You can find this stuff at Home Depot. It's $20 for the box with both cans in it, and we're gonna try it out. I apologize in advance. I'm just going to take a minute here before we get into the whole demo portion of this video. I just want to take a minute and apologize if the sound isn't quite up to par on this video. I'm hoping it's excellent, actually. But I just got I bought a new microphone set up for recording these videos and stuff. Previously, I'd just been using the built-in microphone on my overhead cam, because the overhead cam was closer to me. My overhead cam sits up here, just out of the frame. It sits much closer to me than the camera on this camera right here. So I'd been using it previously, and it's just a webcam mic. I wasn't too happy with the sound, so I went out and bought a whole new setup for sound. So if it doesn't sound, I'm hoping it's great this time. But if it's a little off or something, I'll be tweaking it as I make more videos. the mic itself is a very good mic, so I'm sure that I can get it to sound right once once I home it in. In fact, I'll just show you guys real quick. It's kind of cool. I just picked it up. It's a Yeti mic made from the company Blue, and I did go a little overboard on it. I bought the microphone stand and the pop filter, and I bought the shock mount up here. I don't know why, but I kind of thought it would be cool when I was doing it, so I said, what the heck. And I'm hoping that it'll actually result in a much higher sound quality for my videos for you guys, because I try to shoot them in 1080p. My overhead cam is technically able to do 1080p, but if I want to zoom in, I usually have to do 720p. So I try to keep the stuff high def, and I wanted to make sure that I got really good audio along with good video quality, and because that's one thing that drives me nuts when I'm watching a video. I want to see details, which is another, and I want to hear. I want a good video experience. So I'm hoping I'm providing that for you guys. But anyway, that's another, and that's also why I do a lot of close-ups of stuff that other people don't. Like in my How to Solder Dean's video, I actually do high-def close-ups of soldering the actual connectors, because if you're new, you may not know how to do that, and you're going to want to see in as much detail as possible. So at any rate, enough about that. I just kind of wanted to show off my new mic. But at any rate, so let's get into the demo here. So this is a Sidewinder SV2 speed controller. Never mind the extra wires here. I've got a little cheapy Hobby Wing BEC soldered into this thing. But as you can tell, it definitely has that milky white haze all over it. And I also added my own fan, so if it looks a little funky, that's why. If you're curious on how to add your own fan, just get a little 25mm PC fan. Make sure it's rated for 5 or 6 volts. And what I did was I just took PC fan case screws and screwed them down in between the heat sinks. Yeah, it did bend the heat sink out a little bit on the end, but it didn't really hurt it. And then I just took a little bit of shoe goo put on the tops of the screws, and then stuck the fan down on it. Works really well, actually. But anyway, enough about the fan. As you can tell, I've already got my ESC coated here. If you've never taken one of these apart, here's the case. Essentially, all you got to do is you have to take an X-Acto knife, and along this edge and the opposite edge, you basically just have to cut that sticker, because that sticker's all one piece. It goes all around all 3 sides of this thing. Just cut that sticker on this side, cut it on the opposite side, and then you can just take, preferably you want to take something plastic, like one of those tools they use to open up like iPods with, or something like that. If you're desperate, you can use a small screwdriver, but just be very careful that you don't bust it. It's just the bottom part's got some, let's see if I can get it in focus here, it's got some clips on the sides, and you just kind of got to pop those clips out. The ends do not have any clips, so if you pry from the end, if you're going to pry with a screwdriver, pry from the end. That's what I did, and I managed to open it without breaking it. So this is just a little pad that's in there. But at any rate, I'm not going to worry about the case for this demo. And let's see. All right, guys, I'm just gonna insert this little blurb right into the middle of the video here. At this point right here, I've had to switch to the audio from just the camcorder itself, because I didn't realize it, but right here at this segment was where my computer actually rebooted due to a Windows update, and I did not, the microphone that I was recording with was hooked up to the laptop, so I lost the good high definition audio from this point throughout the rest of the video. So I just thought I'd throw this little quick segment in there to let you guys know that that's what happened to the sound difference, the sound quality or whatever, and hopefully on the next video it'll be all good. Now, before I go dunking this in water, I do want to show that it does work before being dunked. Turn the switch on here. Well, let me get my receiver, or transmitter rather. Keeps wanting to roll over. I'm trying to get the LED, keep the LED in focus without touching the board. So as you guys can see there, it is working. You know, the curious thing about this, and here I'll show you with the motor as well. Reverse. So this clearly works. The curious thing is, if you notice when I turned it on, in fact I'll just do it again for you real quick. The weird thing is I can't hear, well, I take that back. I won't say I can't hear it, but it's so faint. You know, the normal Castle beeps and stuff that you get when you start up. It's so faint you can hardly hear it. I find that a little odd, if you will, because when I did my Mamba Monster Max with Corrosion X, the same thing happened. The beeps became so faint you couldn't hardly hear them. So I thought that was a little odd. But at any rate, let's see here. Let me back this up just a little. So I've got a little Tupperware thing with water, just straight up tap water right out of the tap. It's not distilled or anything like that because I want to make sure that it's good to go. Let me turn this off here. And we're just going to stick this right down in the water. Let's just okay, so if you guys can see this, well, okay, so it was odd. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if I caught that on camera or not. When I first stuck it in the water, the switch was turned off, but it actually, the system actually booted. The light started flashing on it, and it was acting like it was trying to come on, but then it would reset, and it did that 2 or 3 times. And then I actually turned it on. It booted all the way up. I turned it back off, and then it turned off and stayed off. So let me turn it on again and see if it turns on or if we fried it. Okay, so it's on. It's actually on. It is working. Let's see if I can get a better. Let's get a better close up of those LEDs in there. There, it turned right off that time. And it turned right on. And it's on. So let's do a little test with the motor here. As you can see, the LED is working fine. The It is going green for forward, reverse, folks. I would say this is a winner. Take it out of the water here. Now you'll notice that, like I said, I sprayed on in a very, very heavy coat. I was being paranoid when I sprayed this on. The all those little flakes that you see in there are just they're just overspray is what they basically are. It's overspray that flaked off. And if you notice, I just pulled this out of the water. The only part of this that is even wet is actually along this side right here. And this is the side that it was actually laying on that side after I sprayed it. I laid it down on a paper bag to let it dry. I was trying to get it to sit up on its top, but it wouldn't. I just could not make it sit like that. But it apparently doesn't seem to hurt anything. The actual metal contacts all stayed covered. But if you notice, like, the part of this this heat sink and stuff that when it came out, as soon as it came out, it's completely dry. It's not wet at all. Same with the rest of the bottom of this board. The only parts that look wet are the parts that actually did not get covered. So this seems to be a very successful test. It's still on. It's still working. So yeah, that would seem to be a successful test. It's still on. It's still working, and it's really like 99% dry. I think in retrospect, I think if I would have taken a little more time, I was really anxious to get this video out, so I really didn't take my time with it like I probably should have. But I think in retrospect, if I would have slowed down and I would have went with 2 or 3 light coats of the base coat, and then followed it up with 2 or 3 lighter coats of the top coat, making sure that I got like every nook and cranny. I just took the thing and just went, and I just hosed it down essentially. Because basically, part of it was because I was in a hurry. Part of it was because I actually, for whatever reason, I felt like that if I put heavier coat on it, it might seep down into places like underneath the heat sink and stuff and help protect down in there. I really don't think, in retrospect, that you need to go that ridiculous with it. Honestly, I think 2, 3 good coats, not overly heavy, but good coats of the base coat, and then 2 or 3 of the top coat. And honestly, I don't see this stuff really wearing out for a year. I bet you could go a whole season, a whole year using this, and before I would even probably bother to take it apart and check to see if it maybe needs another coat. So at any rate, I'm glad it was a successful test. I was hoping I wasn't going to burn up my ESC on camera, But I figured, hey, what the hell, if I did, still good entertainment value to watch somebody burn up their shit, right? So it was a win-win for you guys either way, and hopefully, I think I'm the first guy out there to actually try this stuff out for waterproofing. So if I'm not the first, I'm definitely up there. So that's kind of a win for me, I guess. Either way it would have went. But at any rate, if you're interested in RC pics, make sure you check out my Facebook page. You can also leave me comments there, involve yourself in RC conversation. I try to post up RC related topics and sales and pictures and articles and new products coming out, anything I see on that page. I do apologize though, I haven't been around all that much. I haven't been doing that much RC stuff lately. I mentioned in a sub caption on Boxy Brown episode 19, which I just published out to the internet earlier today, that I've been involved with restoring my old Dodge Dakota pickup truck, and it's basically taken all my money. I don't really have a whole lot of money to do RC stuff this year, so this year I'm kind of taking a break, doing some gaming, some other stuff. I spend more time with my wife, you know, those kind of things. I've mentioned this before, but in case you haven't seen my other videos, you know, that's why I've been taking a break from RC. Some of the big reasons why. But at any rate, my Facebook page can be found at www.facebook.com/GrayWolfStudios74, all one word. And if you'd like to, you know, drop me a line or leave me a comment via email, you can do that also at GrayWolfStudios74 @gmail.com. Peace.